everybody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
This right here is basic drop shadow. We've all seen it, but not all of us know how to do it. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this perfectly every single time, and it'll work on your throwies pieces and wild styles. Now to begin, we have three basic shapes here. You have a square, circle, and a triangle. And no matter if we're doing a throwy, a piece, or a wild style, our graffiti, our letters, are going to be made out of a combination of these three different shapes. So if we can add drop shadow to these three shapes, then we can add drop shadow to any letter, no matter how complex or simple it is. So what's the basic idea behind drop shadow? Well, to put it simply, all we're really trying to do is we're trying to draw an exact duplication of our initial shape, of our initial structure. And then we're moving that structure in the exact opposite direction of our light source, then turning it black, or some level of gray. That's the basic idea, but that's easy enough to do with a software like Procreate. So how do we actually draw this? That way we can use it on walls, or our sketchbook. So the very first step is to pick our light source. Most times in graffiti, that light source is in the top right. It's just what graffiti artists prefer. So for this example, we'll begin with our light source in the same spot, the top right. Once we have our light source, you can imagine that the light is going to come out of the actual light bulb and beam down towards the opposite direction. In this case, being down and to the left. And that means our shadow is going to be in the exact opposite direction of our actual light source. So step 2 is to draw the angle of our light beam. That's our angle right there. This angle tells us two things. It tells us how far down our shadow has to travel and how far out our shadow has to travel. So now with that angle drawn, step 3 is to apply that exact angle to every vertex and really, in all honesty, the entire shape. So if you feel more comfortable, you can measure that exact angle and kind of just draw it very lightly as you'll be erasing it on the actual shape itself, but we're just going to eyeball it. So for the next step, we're going to go ahead and draw this exact line right here, and it'll stop where the angle stops, as you notice. So we'll go ahead and sketch that line there, and now it's time to draw this line, this vertical portion of a square. So we'll go ahead and draw that, and how far down we need to go is indicated by the end of that angle. So if we take that length and we apply it down here, we know that our shadow is going to end roughly about there. The more precise you are with this step, the better off your shadow is going to look. So you could, if you really wanted to, measure this down and to the left angle from every single portion of your actual shape. Most importantly, the vertices, to see exactly where your shadow needs to stop. And in this case, it'll be right here. And then once we hit that point, we know that we have to begin doing this bottom portion of our actual square. This line right here is going to end exactly where our consistent line points to, right there. And once we hit that point, we can begin drawing that vertical portion of our square. And once we have all of that done, we can go ahead and fill it in, and we can even make it lighter if we wanted to. Now that's the formula to how to find drop shadow no matter the shape you're doing. So everything that we just learned is going to work identically to your circles, your triangles, and any complex image you want to draw. So no matter how wild your wild styles are, all of the stuff you just learned will still apply exactly the same. Now if you really want to learn a lot more about graffiti beyond just drop shadow, you want some crazy looking letters, you want to learn the actual fundamentals to make the progress you're looking for, then check out the book we came out with in the description down below. We have digital versions of the book over at theartistblock.inc, where you can use the coupon code July 4th for 15% off. And we have physical versions of the book over on Amazon. Both those links are down below. We've got hundreds of pictures throughout the book that help demonstrate the lessons, which makes it perfect for new graffiti artists, and we discuss each one of these fundamentals in incredible amounts of depth. That makes the book perfect for experienced graffiti artists. Now, when you're not super consistent with this angle here of your light source and shadow, you can get into some really wonky looking drop shadow that doesn't look too good. It doesn't look too accurate or convincing. So let's say now our drop shadow is supposed to go down and to the left, but we end up doing something a little bit more like this, which you see quite a bit of in graffiti, that immediately doesn't look right, and it becomes pretty obvious that there's been some mistakes made. So always keep in mind, the more accurate our shadow is to the actual shape of our structure, the better off it's going to look. Now the best part is nothing changes no matter the shape we're doing. So we could be doing a circle in this instance, and the same exact fundamentals apply. We choose our light source. In this case, we're going to keep it top right just to keep things nice and simple, and that means our shadows are going to be going in the opposite direction, down and to the left. So now we just have to find out where our shadow is going to actually kind of start from and where it's going to end, which is going to be a little bit more difficult for a rounder object as we don't have a direct vertex to kind of extend our angle from. So how do we handle something like that? When I was very first learning how to draw drop shadow, what I really liked doing that helped me with this process on rounded edges was to draw this exact angle and its exact length from every point on the side of the circle. This would help me discover where the actual shadow would start to disappear behind our circle. So forgive me if I'm not super accurate, but I'm just going to kind of rough this in just to show a demonstration. demonstration. And you can see once we do that, we begin to have some lines like this one right here and these two down here that kind of fade into the actual shape itself. They disappear behind the shape. We really get a nice look of that if we kind of make the circle more transparent. Well, that right there tells us where our shadow is going to begin and end. It tells us where the shadow is going to start to curve behind the circle itself. So now if we want to go ahead and draw our drop shadow, all we have to do is connect the very ends of these lines, almost like we're connecting the dots. And once you're happy with it, you can fill it in. Now for triangles or anything of that sort, it's going to work exactly like the square. Nothing at all changes. So we could have our light source on the top right as we've been doing, but let's go ahead and put it on the top left. That means that now our shadows are going to be going down and to the right. So we can go ahead and begin with this vertex, and we can shoot that same exact angle we have here right there. Then we'll do the same thing for this one over here. And then we'll do the same thing for this one over here. Now all that's left is to connect the dots with a triangular shape. And once you have it sketched in, you can color it like before, fill it in, and erase any sketch lines that you might have. Now we combine all that together, we can easily add drop shadow to our letters, our throwies, our wild style pieces, no matter how complex it gets. Now all of those basic shapes really illustrate how we're kind of piecing together our drop shadow for the letters itself. As you can see, nothing really changes, right? This basic box, this stem back here for the B, is just a big rectangle, and the rounder parts are really just kind of circles meshed together. So in this example, our light source is still at the top right, but it really wouldn't matter where it is. We can make it at the top left, we can make it directly above, and everything would remain exactly the same. The shadow goes in the exact opposite direction of our light source, so our light source is top right, our shadow goes down and to the left, down and to the left, and down and to the left. And that even remains true for these inside portions as well, as you can see right there. Because we're not drawing 3D, we wouldn't keep these lines here, right? Because then that would turn it into 3D, which we have a different tutorial for that as well. For the A, nothing changes at all. We still have our light source and the shadows going in the exact opposite direction, but check out this closed counter here where everything is filled in black. The reason for that is because the shadow extends further beyond what this negative space allows us to see. As you can see, if we were to kind of sketch the inside of that shadow there behind the letter, that shadow turns out to be larger than the actual negative space itself. That's why we don't see that little hint of beige like we do in the B. So just like previous examples, we'd go to our vertex, we'd draw down and to the left, we'd go to the next vertex, down and to the left, next vertex, down and to the left, next vertex, down and to the left, but this one's inside of the actual letter structure, so we're not going to see a shadow in there, right? So we go to the next one, down and to the left, and we continue that process throughout the entire letter structure. Now check this out. I did a little piece here that uses a bunch of different shapes for the letter structures to demonstrate how the drop shadow would be applied to these different kinds of structures. And as you can see right here, we even color coded different areas of the piece that correlate to the shapes that they're using. And one big thing that you'll notice is that a lot of these shapes are really an amalgamation, a bit of a blend from one to another. Yeah, sometimes we have something that's purely round or purely square, but a lot of times it goes from being square to kind of going off in a more rounded direction, or we'll have a rounded edge to our letter that comes to a really harsh angle. That just about wraps up the tutorial for drop shadow. Now you guys should be able to apply drop shadow to your throwies, your pieces, and your wild styles, no matter how complex they get. Really, it's just a matter of practicing and raising the complexity ever so slightly as you become more and more familiar with how to do drop shadow. If you're really struggling to do drop shadow in different directions, I recommend turning your page. This lets you kind of do the drop shadow you're familiar with, put the light at the angle you're familiar with, while getting rid of some of the learning curve to learning those different directions. But just remember, no matter the direction, no matter the shape, everything remains exactly the same as you learned in this video. So always feel free to come back to it if you need to. And you can also check out the bonus download we have for this video in the description down below. It'll contain a few more examples, a few more demonstrations to help you get a little bit more comfortable in seeing drop shadow and how it's done. But dudes, if you guys really want to up your level in graffiti and you want to break out of that toy phase, you want to find your style, then check out the book we came out with in the description down below and use the coupon code July 4th for 15% off. And if you want more graffiti tutorials, check out this playlist right up here with more graffiti content right down here. And I'll catch you guys back here next week. Thanks for watching.